Hello, and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with Don Chioffi. I am Don Chioffi, and first of all, I would like to wish you all a very, very happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to all of our listeners. Today, I'm honored to have as a guest on our program Alderman Sam Gorruso, newly elected, but not new to the Board of Aldermen. And he can tell you a little bit about the old history Rutland background that he has, and how it relates to, I think, what he calls the people's business in the city of Rutland. And we're going to get into a lot of topics today, mainly budget and the process and the governance of the city of Rutland. Welcome, Sam. It's good to have you here. I'd shake your hand, but we are under COVID, and we'd like to thank PEG TV for making a little accommodation. Both Sam and I have issues with masks, but we are social distancing, and PEG TV has been gracious enough, and we have social distance from all the staff here. Thanks, Sam, and welcome.
Thank you, Don. Glad to be here. I thank you for inviting me on your show. We work together, of course, with your column that you write for us every week. And I want to thank PEG TV and Chelsea Tice for doing all the technical parts for us and letting me be here. Of course, I asked you to be your guest because the coverage in the Rutland Herald is not what it used to be. It's not as deep digging as it used to be, or deep dug as it used to be. But I was reported on in the budget meetings as just having voted no against the budget. And I think the people deserve a little bit more as to why I voted no. And I don't plan on, I keep using the term beating up the mayor or the fellow aldermen or the department heads or any of the employees. I just feel that I would like to maybe talk about what happened with the budget from my point of view or from as a fellow alderman. But I am the only one that voted no on the Rutland City budget. And, you know, this year the budget is up around $222,202. $22 million, I'm sorry. It's a $22 million budget, I'm sorry. And it is up, I believe it's 106,000, I think it is, and don't hold me, that's handwritten notes there, but
Yeah, that would equate to about a 5% increase overall, but it may not be a 5% increase in taxes. But,
Right.
you know, you're talking about the budget, but before you get into any of the specifics, Sam, could you talk a little bit, because, you know, this is kind of an insider interview, you know? People don't get to see what goes on really at the Board of Aldermen meeting, especially with this new COVID thing and the, what is it, go to meeting or whatever it is.
Right.
Probably the least productive type of way to run a government for people to participate. How does this budget get concocted? I mean, is it a zero-based, or what, how is the budget prepared, and how much time do you get to look at individual things that are in the budget?
As per the charter, the department heads normally would meet with the mayor, and the mayor has the right to negotiate with them if it should go up or down. And then by charter, the Board of Aldermen can only cut. They cannot add to the mayor's budget. And then it comes to us, and then we're given ample time to look it over and on our own. And then we go by committee, have meetings. Again, those Zoom meetings, though, where we're on the computer. In the past, my last tour of the Board of Aldermen in the 90s, we would sit in the room and talk to the department heads and see them and see the mayor and the treasurer, and we would go through item by item and ask questions and try to negotiate items. It seemed easier to do that in person than it does on the Zoom, you know, business and basis. But, you know, the fact is the budget's not up a lot of money. I mean, it's really not. It's $148,000 up. I'll say, you know, almost 149.
Yeah, but my question to you is, should it be up at all? I mean, we're talking about a COVID situation where things have been basically, a lot of things have been shut down. You got people working at home. you have a whole mess of things that aren't running the way they used to run on a full stream type of a thing, so.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I was, trying to get people to talk about it, get other members to talk about it, because my business is down. I work in advertising. There's a lot of retail businesses that have gone. Our mall is gone. There's a lot of stores that are in really big trouble, a lot of restaurants. Those were great sources of revenue for my business. We're barely hanging on, and a lot of other media is barely hanging on. You can almost tell in the newspapers when you open them up and see such few ads in them. And what happens is that there's this also, you got to look at the staff. The staff of these businesses aren't getting the tips. The waitresses aren't. The food purveyors aren't getting the business that they were because people aren't going out to dine and all that. There's a big trickle-down effect, okay, out of this virus that's affecting Rutland businesses. And raising water fees and raising taxes and all that stuff is not going to help hurting businesses. And selling things at tax sale is not always the answer. The answer is trying to live within our means as the others are trying to live within their own means. And that's what I tried to do. And what happens is I brought this up actually at the most recent meeting, which we're here on just before Christmas today taping, but I've had extensive experience in this. I've twice been hired at a radio station to go in, and one of the radio stations was losing around $70,000 a month, and I would have to go in and cut things to get the station profitable and keep it running. And you have to sit down and you have to work with the employees and, see what they could do without and see what the company could do without. I had to do it my company. I was telling them last night, I had 5 phone lines. I had to cut them out. I have 1 now. My phone bill went from $5.50 a month down to $45. Cut out things that you don't need and live without them. And that's what a budget is about. And that's why the importance of tightening the budget and actually making it go down rather than only up a few $100,000 isn't good enough. It needs to go down. It needs to go backwards because I think the hard times are still ahead of us.
Well, you're, among many other things, you're a very logical person, and I've known you for years, and the whole emphasis in COVID mitigation on the part of governors here and there and everywhere, and the president and so forth, has been to cut down participation in restaurants, in sporting arenas, and this. And you're cutting them by a half. You're cutting them by 75%. You're saying 25% occupancy, 50% occupancy. You're cutting everything by a quarter to a half to 3/4. Wouldn't you think that when it came to budgeting for government, people would be thinking, well, we should be cutting by 25 or 30 or 40%. I mean, the restaurants have been cut by that, and they still, they have the same bills.
You're right.
We're going to give them the same bill. We're going to give them exactly the same bill that we gave them last year, only it's going to be up a little bit, even though they've been told that they can only have 25% of the revenue that they have.
Here's apples and apples, and this may not sound it to you and the viewers out there. Last March, the parking meters are down. The parking meters revenue is down. Gee, the parking meter revenue is down. And then by summertime, after having said, would somebody go look and see nobody's parking downtown? Please just go look, go out of your offices and go look. And then they finally, they even claimed the meters were broken and they needed to buy new meters. And then they come back and go, wow, there's nobody parking downtown. And the transit center, there's nobody parking there because the state office workers are working from home and they're working on these Zoom meetings.
Now,
And
did the lease
CCD
price, do you know if the lease price on the transit center, the parking, did that go down?
I don't know, because I actually missed that meeting. I was late at it. I had to work late that night. These meetings started at, most of them were at 5:30, and 5:30 is sometimes not a time I could be home from work.
Well, how many aldermen are there?
There's 11 of us.
There are 11 of you. I would think that at least 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or possibly 11 out of 11 might be asking these questions.
Right, right. Well, and
Do they? I mean,
well, that's the thing, is I don't want to pick on them.
Well, you're not
there's
picking
some
on them,
great
it's just-
people, and the mayor's a good guy. He was a friend of mine, and I don't think some of these people appreciate my questions, but It takes a skill. It takes a skill to sit down and talk to these people and negotiate. I mean, one of my favorite lines is so somebody's making $75,000 a year in city government, and they're getting dental, and they're getting medical, and they're getting mileage, we'll say. Can you negotiate with them and say, look, I can't give you mileage anymore, we got to cut your budget? I mean, are they going to walk away from a $75,000 a year job with full dental and full medical
Well,
because they're
no.
not going to get mileage?
Not if you said to them, well, we have a number of options, and one of the options is that you're not here anymore, and I don't want to do
That's-
that.
we're gonna
because you're-
hire somebody-
You're a good person, and I want to keep you, but we just can't afford all these
I'm
benefits
going to hire
right now."
somebody that'll take your job, that'll take it without mileage. Or I'm going to hire somebody that's going to take your job and pay half their health insurance. And I'm really sorry, we just don't have any more jobs at that. You know, that's all. I mean, try it, ask them, work it. I mean, and that's just a case scenario. It's just that we're talking, here for the heck of it. But this is how you negotiate. And the Board of Aldermen sat there and never questioned a thing through all these meetings. And another one that I went up on me was I went to and attended meetings with International Harvester and Ford about leasing. Okay, so let's talk how simple that is. Say a Department of Public Works truck is $60,000. That's with a plow, the lights on it, the whole shebang. And simple numbers, 6 years, you run the truck, it's $10,000 a year to lease the truck. So you only have to lay out $10,000. Would you rather write a check for $10,000 a year for 6 years or $60,000 all at once and burst your budget? So they said, no, we can't lease those trucks. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to write a check for 60. That doesn't make any sense to me when International and has all the numbers on our side that you would pay a level payment for whatever 6 years, and then you own the truck at the end of the lease, by the way, through it's called not a municipal lease, but it's similar to that. The next night, they want to buy a vacuum suction truck for the sewer pipes because the sewer settles in the pipes and it has to be flushed out once in a while. It's $160,000 and they're leasing it. And I asked, well, wait a second, you can't lease a dump truck, but you're going to lease this truck. Same department, Public Works, same people.
And my question is, did you get an answer to that?
Yeah, the answer was the truck's so expensive it makes sense to lease it. It doesn't matter.
Everything is so expensive.
Would you rather write
Money
a
is-
check out of your checkbook for $60,000, or would you rather write it for 10 a year for 6 years?
Yeah,
We're
money.
trying to keep the budget down. We're trying to make it easier to pay our bills here. We're trying to make it, that's all I'm saying. It's just, and when you see things like, any department, I mean, health insurance from one department from 69,567 up to 83,000. My numbers, that's a 23% jump on health insurance. Health insurance is expensive. How do I know? I pay my own. I always have. I pay $900 a month, and I got one heck of a deductible. You got to
Well,
see the money I owe.
who negotiates that?
I believe it's Human Resources. I believe it's the mayor and Human Resources, okay? That's what I learned. That's what I learned, But how lucky these people are to have such a nice health plan when I have to pay my own. And how lucky the members of the Board of Aldermen must be because they didn't balk at these. Apparently they're accepted. Apparently they get theirs paid for, so they don't find it to be a problem, And of course, Human Resources was 14,000 and has jumped up to 29,000. That's a 23.9% increase in health insurance for Human Resources,
14 to 29.
That's what we're seeing here,
It's almost 100%.
Well, maybe, I'm sorry, it was let me get the right column here, but it was,
well-
it said, well, no, it was 14,313 to 29,4. So,
Yeah, that's 15,
Right.
that's almost 15 to almost 30.
So-
That's double. How can anybody justify a 100% increase in an insurance premium? I don't understand. If
And,
14.9 covered it last year, why,
and a salary of $82,764,
for what now?
for
Did
the
you-
Human Resources. So we have an
Well,
almost 83,000 salary and another 30 for insurance. There's a $100,000 job right there.
So what's the turnover in the city that
I would
Human
think-
Resources deals with hiring people? And here we're in COVID, we're shutting things down, people are working at home.
I
I'm
would-
not assuming that the city has that kind of a turnover rate. Huh?
I would think that there's very little turnover. Anybody that would leave these jobs is out of their minds, you know? I mean, you know, these are great jobs, and they pay well. And like I said, I'm not beating the people up. God bless them for getting these, but, you know, could they be worked out? Because selling people's homes and, you know, having tax sales and all that is not particularly the answer. And when you have people in government making these kind of wages, it's nothing to pay their taxes.
No.
If they're even city residents.
But
I've
talking
heard
about
some
selling,
aren't.
talking about selling people's homes, how about the actual people that are living here that are selling their homes and moving out? I mean, is the population rising in the city of Rutland now?
Well, we all know it's going down. I Googled it the other day. It's 15,000. It's been dropping, you know, quite regularly. You know, I was talking to someone recently, police, because, you know, the police department, when I was a kid, they had 3 police cars and very few men, and now they've got like 18 police cars, but they get more calls than they've ever had. I mean, the police calls are right through the roof, so we're a busy town.
You know, I've often wondered, and maybe you don't know this, but it's something that maybe somebody ought to look into. We always talking about population, you say it's 15,000. Is it 15,000 property tax paying residents, or, you know, how many property taxpayers are there in the city of Rutland as opposed to total population? Because I have personally just have a distinct feeling that there are a heck of a lot of non-property owning taxpayers in the city of Rutland, or residents in the city of Rutland.
I'm not sure of the breakout. When I was in the radio station, we had services that constantly provided us with
Well, I think
psychographics and
that
demographics
I
that would.
really, Sam, think that is a very important figure that somebody ought to come up with, a number. And the reason being quite simple. This budget has to be sustained by property taxpayers. Property taxpayers.
Right,
Yet the budget is approved by total taxpayers.
right.
And that can make a big difference, because if people don't feel that their taxes are going to go up, their property taxes are going to go up because they're non-property owners,
Right.
then they may have a
Well, that
tendency
would-
just to vote for these things.
That would be a charter change that would be substantial, to have to do that, you know that.
Well, I'm not talking about changing anything, I'm just talking about knowing what the
Right.
number is.
Right.
So that the,
Well, I've met people over the years that say that. I own a lot of land in Rutland, and I have no say in, because I don't live there, you know, and business people have said that before, too. They own buildings and have no say in it, and it's been like that a long, long time, you know, so that goes on, and that story goes on for a long time. And by the way, you know, I want to get this out, too, is I clearly was opposed to the Rutland Recreation Center, but it passed. But I have to commend the young lady that runs that. She came in with a budget that was down. She was one of a few people that came in with a budget that was down, and she offset a lot of her budget by revenue numbers and took into case COVID and the fact that her numbers would be down a little bit, her revenue numbers, you know, because that's one of the departments that she can offset expenses with income. And most all the other departments don't have that luxury of offsetting anything. With
well,
revenue,
apparently
you
the
know.
water department has that luxury because they use it every single time you turn around. I don't know, as one of the tax-paying members that supports this water structure and the sewer structure in the city of Rutland, being a town resident, I know how many times it goes up. It seems it goes up more than you change your underwear. I mean, every time they get a need for revenue, they raise it because the town pays 3 times the rate that the city does. So, well, if we jab the city people just a little bit, we get 3 times as much out of Mendon and 3 times as much out of Rutland Town. Quite a cash cow there.
Yeah, I voted against that last night. That was, what's today, the 22nd? Last night
Yeah,
was the
22nd, yeah.
And that was brought before us, and I voted against that because, again, the water meter, the water rates, I think, are substantial. And I'd like to just, you know, see if we could get a holiday on them somewhere for a while, because, again, it's you know, a few $100s a quarter is a lot of money. I can remember them $50, $60 a quarter, and You know, we had all that hard rain a few weeks ago, and I'm thinking we're getting our supply filled up. But, you know, Jeff Wenberg, even back as mayor, had brought up a good point. We do charge for distribution, and it takes pipes and the facilities to distribute it, so it does cost money and the staff to
What was
to
the
do it.
major justification for the increase this time? I
He
mean,
said it was bonding, that there were a lot of bonds the voters had put in place, and that we had to satisfy the bonds and pay back the bonds, and that was where, that the overall budget was down in the water department and water and sewer. And I said, still, you know, if there were cuts somehow, like one less truck or one less something or other, it would have been nice, but it's still like the least of our problems, because like I said, there's just, you know, maybe some more time that could be spent on this and on the budget itself. Again, not to get off the track of water, because, you know, there's other issues there too. I mean, we had a meeting back months ago with Mark Foley, and Mr. Foley Jr. Had said that we have what's called I believe it's called, is it a water, what is it called, a water impact fee, I believe it's called, where if you and I want to open up a restaurant and we have like 100 seats, there's a fee you have to pay to have a water connection, whatever. What is that called? And it could be like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 just to you know, just to open a restaurant. You get nothing for it. You don't get any booze, you don't get any food, you don't get any carpeting or linens, you just pay this fee. And it's an impact fee, and I think that's what it is. And it's like, he's had several people walk away and say, no, I don't want to open up a restaurant in Rutland, it's too much money for nothing. When in fact, when the restaurant gets opened and the toilets get flushed and the sinks get running to wash vegetables and you know, work in the kitchen, the meter's running and the sewer and the water fees are coming out accordingly by the amount of business that they're doing. That's fair to me.
well, maybe if the meters are working right. But
Right.
we have an issue there as well.
There are some meters that aren't working from what they reported to us and from what I've heard, you know.
And then on the contract fees that they have with the city, with the town of Rutland and Mendon, they have, this has been a big bone of contention. There's the fire, I think it's called a fire suppression fee or whatever. It's you have to pay for the high pressure line, the fire line, to be able to fight a fire. That has nothing to do with metered uses. That's just, you got to pay it because the line's got to be there for a sprinkler system, and you're required, based on OSHA regulations, to put a sprinkler system in most major businesses in the town, so they've got to pay an additional fee. In addition to their regular fee, they got to pay this fire suppression fee.
Yeah.
Just to have that line there. And I don't know, if that has to be maintained, it's only being used if there's a fire.
Right.
There's not a fire every day, for sure. I mean, I don't know how they flush those lines or whatever, but.
Well, just, the thing is, you know, we got about 7 minutes left. I just want to, again, reiterate and why we did this show and why I wanted to be on here and to thank you and PEG TV is that we got through the budget. It was a lot of long hours. I'm on the board effective this March for another year, if I make it. And I got another budget to go through, and I'd really like to see some participation. I'd like to see some questions asked. There were a lot of times I just sat there going, you know, wow, no questions asked, no, you know.
Well,
no,
has there ever been a thought to zero-based budgeting? Does anybody ever talk about zero-based budgeting?
There was no talk whatsoever. It was a pretty quiet budget this year. It was, I mean, like I said, I remember in the 90s, the sleeves were rolled up and there was some hanging on the desk going on. And, you know, like
Well,
I said,
you know,
I'm not beating up the board, but it just doesn't seem like that kind of fiscally minded group of people that can sit there and say, you know, I just flipped to a page here, you know, maintaining trees is $56,000. Maybe we could cut that down by 6,000 and maybe something else here by whatever. And I don't want to interrupt you. Another one of my favorite lines is I like to say every $5,000 is a house. I like to just say the average house being $5,000 in taxes. So just think about that. Every $5,000 that you take out of this budget is a house, or every $5,000 that you put into this budget is a house. So it takes, if you go up $50,000 in expenses, you just had, 10 houses worth of taxes to pay for it.
Right. When you have a declining population and you have out-migration and sales of homes in the city of Rutland. So, I'm not, I don't mean to be beating up, I don't think we're beating up on the board. It's no criticism of any one board member or any
No,
number
not
of board
the mayor or
members.
any of them.
But
It's the facts of the facts.
It's just a fact of life, Sam, that there's many different ways of approaching a budget. And when you get a budget in a city as large as the city of Rutland, and the number of items that you have, number of line items that you have there, it gets to be some kind of an endemic thing that, well, the budget was this last year, so we're going to take that budget that we had last year, and we just need to increase it by just a little bit.
It seems so. It seems, though,
That's the
yes.
only mentality, is that we're going to take last year's budget and we're going to increase it. It's never that we look line item by line item and make every single department head justify every single line in there
Well,
from
with
zero,
fluoride,
from zero ahead.
they
Well,
found out they got an overabundance of fluoride, so they aren't going to be buying any in the next year because they have a stockpile of it. So they recognize that, and, so they won't be buying any of that. So that item was chopped out of the budget. But, you're right. I mean, going through it item by item, and they did. Like, I mean, the Recreation and Parks woman, I know it's Kimberly
Peters, yeah.
I saw her take her advertising and say, I can do a lot online or whatever through social media. She cut that. I saw her cut things, and like I said, she thinks she probably hates my guts because I voted against most everything she wanted to do with that new place there, but she got it. The voters went for it. Good for her. Congratulations. It's a beautiful facility. Joe Giancola talks very well of it and proud of it. But she also did a good job in her budget. I think she really did. She worked hard on it. But overall, it feels like, here it was, let's add a little, or let's see what we can cut. But, let's just add a little. And I just wanted to explain why I voted no. And I got to mention in the Rutland Herald, Aldermen Sam Gorruso voted no. And there should have been an explanation, and the explanation was, I just watched night after night after night, elections, budget is, 10,410, all in favor, aye. Treasurer's office budget, 661,000 after this adjustment on insurance, all in favor, aye. City attorneys, 305,000, all in favor, aye. That's literally how it just about went.
Yeah.
And it was like, it just was a little too fast, and there's so many things. And President Whitcomb, I mean, he brought up a thing that's called captive insurance. And he brought it up, and then it was, okay, back to the mayor. And the mayor went on to talk about whatever he was talking about. And I go, hold it, it's a committee meeting here. Could you please go on and talk more about that captive policy, And captive insurance is a great way to pool employees into being able to save their deductibles and their premiums and all that, and maybe even earning interest on it and using it when you need it and getting really low premiums on insurance. It's a great idea, and he brought it to the board, but the rest of them are like this.
Yeah, but you said it, Sam. There's very little investigative reporting going on in this world, and Rutland's not unique in this problem. It's throughout all of mainstream media. Nobody wants to investigate anymore. Nobody wants to dig in. I don't know. Maybe Vermont Digger does because that's their name. I don't know that for a fact.
They've done some
but
pretty good articles.
They do more in-depth stories, I think, than anybody else does. And we don't get that here in Rutland, and I don't think it does a service to the taxpayers, to the citizens of Rutland. It doesn't do them a service just to hear I. But we should do like 2 or 3 or 4 more of these programs like this.
Yeah.
And you're certainly welcome to come on at any time, and the people will get a more in-depth
Well,
presentation.
if people want to, they can call my office, or, I'm at Alderman Sam G at Gmail, ALDERMAN, Sam G at Gmail. Tell me if you like what we talked about. I'm not here to beat anybody up. I'm trying to just keep you informed as to how we can try to save you money and get your taxes down.
I kind of think your mission is to try to make this place affordable for people to be able to stay in a city that they love. And a lot of them are being forced to make a bad decision, or to make a decision not to. So, Merry
you.
Christmas. Merry Christmas to all of
Show's
you.
gonna be on over
And
after
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas
but-
to you and your family, Sam. Thanks for being with us
Thanks,
today.
Don. Same to you.
Yep.